So I'm Nicole Fogelman, and welcome everyone. Welcome Sandy, and welcome Mike, and welcome to those that are watching the recording. Tonight is a special event. It's called the Community Support Group, and we always have a special guest. And tonight we have Peggy Kraus, and so we welcome her. She is also one of the PBNSG facilitators that works on a regular basis doing diabetes care. So I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit. I have her bio here in front of me, so I'm going to read that for us because there were some things about Peggy I did not know until I read this. I've known Peggy a little bit. I've got to know her a lot more over the last year and a half because we work on another group together called Sage Circle Alliance. And so, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know her through the internet, through social media, and now I've known more about her. So let me share a little bit about Peggy. She is an exercise physiologist and diabetes care and education specialist. Her clients say her superpower is helping people reverse type 2 diabetes, but the impact of her work goes way beyond that. With almost 30 years in cardiac rehab, Peggy has seen firsthand how the American diet has taken a toll on so many lives, leading to chronic disease and unnecessary suffering. She knows health isn't just about managing symptoms, it's about reversing disease when possible, feeling strong and energized, and thriving. Over the years, she has helped thousands of people lower their blood sugar, lose weight, improve their cholesterol, and reduce blood pressure, all with this simple strategic lifestyle changes. She has a 6-week program. It's called Five to Thrive, which I've seen. She has face groups on Facebook, and there's a very active group. And this is built on the 5 key strategies that her most successful students have used to create lasting health transformations. Her upcoming program is called Diabetes Rescue. It gives people and tools they can take back control of their health and make lasting changes. Her plant-based approach is powerful, and so are the results that her clients achieve. So welcome, Peggy. I'm excited that we're here together, and welcome all our guests. Oh, we have Chef Yen. Good to see you again, Chef Yen. And we have BH with us. But welcome, everyone, and I'll let Peggy get started.
Thanks, Nicole. That was a wonderful welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just I know that people are darting around the kitchen or whatever, making dinner. So if you would love to, if you would like to turn your camera on and show your smile, that would be wonderful. But of course, I get it. No problem. But yeah, thank you for being here. And so I would like tonight or today, I don't know where you are in the world, but it's 7:03 p.m. here in New York, and Nicole also has Eastern time. So, so I would like to raise the argument that lab guidelines for lab tests are not optimal, right? That they are standardized and they are not optimal. So um, let's just start with the fact that so when we talk about lab tests tonight, we're going to talk about just the blood tests, simple blood tests. We're not digging into urinalysis or any of that. And probably you're all familiar with having a blood drawn at the lab and then the doctor having a report of the results. And um, now in the era of portals, right? You can see your lab results before the doctor comments on them. And that is a whole new way of life because it used to be, even 10 years ago, that the doctor would not reveal the results unless you went into the office and the doctor was allowed to then bill for another visit and tell you that your cholesterol was high or that your A1C was good but we get lab tests because we want a baseline like so the baseline will be able to know if the numbers are increasing over time or if they're going down over time. And we want to monitor them long term, right? So we're not so much concerned with small jumps, or let's call them small increases in the lab work, but we look at the results over time and where are the trends going. Because elevated numbers could mean that you're at higher risk for chronic conditions like heart attack, stroke, blindness, kidney failure, liver dysfunction, and getting regular blood work, whether it's every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, depending if you don't have a chronic condition or if you need to monitor the outcomes of that condition. You might have them even as frequently as every 3 months. It depends on what your doctor believes is vigilant. There are some lab tests that are done every day, every 2 weeks. So if you only have to go every 3 months, you might think that that's a lot, but like I said, there's even ones that are tested more frequently. Um, and the good news is that most of these chronic conditions, as you know, as Nicole and I and all the other facilitators and support group hosts herald, is that most of them are reversible or at least can be improved with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle choices. So if it's okay with all of you, I'm going to pop out of this Brady Bunch mode and share my slides, because I have some slides prepared. And I want to tell you why I named this particular talk Take Your Numbers from Good to Exceptional. So take your numbers from good to exceptional, because I think that many physicians, not all, but many physicians will say to you when you go back to his office or her office, after you've had blood work done and you're sitting on the table with the paper on it, right? And you're sticking to it, or you're making all the crinkly noises, that you'll say, "So doc, how does my blood work look?" And he or she will say, "Looks good. I'll see you in 3 months." Now, what does that mean? I think that I want to talk tonight so that you'll you'll know what to ask, right? A little bit of education. You don't have to remember it all. You can always watch the replay and get the information again. But a little bit of background information will let you ask the right questions to get more information, right? What are you entitled to? Of course, you're entitled to anything that you ask, but sometimes it's just more information that you really need, and that's where I'm going to help you tonight. Okay. So first is to know which labs to ask for. So I don't know what kind of a doctor that you have, but I just came off of a relationship with a doctor. Unfortunately, he closed his practice, but he was very open to my suggestions for what lab work I wanted. And he basically just did anything that I asked for. Um, But if you don't have one of those doctors, it is good to know which tests you should be getting on a routine basis. And you don't need all of these every 3 months. You don't, maybe every year is a good sequence for that. But again, it depends on you and it depends on your doctor. But I have a client, and she hadn't had lab work probably 3 years. And I said, you know what? It's probably a good idea. Go to your primary care doctor, have a visit, get some lab work done. Let's see where the numbers are now. Well, that doctor did thyroid testing because her weight loss has sort of slowed down, um, but didn't measure her cholesterol. And the woman's 20 pounds overweight. Didn't measure the cholesterol, didn't measure the A1C. There was no vitamin B12, even though she's been eating mostly plant-based diet. This is why I'm bringing this up. I'd like you to know about these and be able to to ask for them if you believe that they are what you need. So the first few, so this CBC, the complete blood cell count, right? It includes things like white blood cells and red blood cell counts, which can detect things like an infection, anemia, right? That's a pretty common standard test. So that should be the first thing written on the doctor's script pad. Well, actually, they don't use that anymore. Everything's transmitted electronically these days. A CMP is a comprehensive metabolic panel, and that includes your fasting blood sugar. It includes things like liver enzymes and albumin, which is a measure of protein in the urine. It also measures GFR. That is the glomerular filtration rate. That's a measure of how well the kidneys are working. So between the albumin and the GFR, the doctor has a good idea of how the kidneys are functioning, the liver enzymes. When the cells of the liver become damaged, they sort of spill out their contents into the bloodstream. So those are good. So it's a general lab panel that will give a lot of information, sort of like an umbrella of how some of your organs are working. Vitamin D, vitamin D is of course the sunshine vitamin, and if you are like me in New York, you don't get a whole lot of sunshine this time of the year, and vitamin D is something that a lot of people need to supplement with. I fought it for a long time, but I did cave, and I do take a small vitamin D supplement just to sort of protect against the unknown. Vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is the vitamin. You've probably all heard about vitamin B12, how people who eat a plant-based diet should really be taking B12. I'm not going to comment on vitamin D because I think that supplements, and for large part, need to be prescribed by the physician, and I'll get back to that. But vitamin B12, because it is a bacteria-borne vitamin. I'll describe that in a minute. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. Because it is bacteria-borne, if you eat clean food, right, you're not going to get a lot of vitamin B12. So think about people who eat an omnivorous diet. They're eating beef and chicken and fish and eggs and other dairy products. And those animals live in filthy conditions. By and large, commercial agriculture is not known for its cleanliness. Sure, there are cattle on the fields, and the farmers take really good care of those animals, and their conditions are far better. So not all of them live in these conditions, but anytime you go to the supermarket and you pull out one of those wrapped plastic bottom steaks, I'm sure I can be pretty certain that that cow did not live in a sterile environment. What happens is that dirt, the bacteria that thrive in those filthy conditions, they make vitamin B12. Right? It's a little more complicated than that, but that's really all you need to know. So, because we don't eat those foods, vitamin B12 supplementation is almost always required, necessary. But I'm going to say that vitamin D and vitamin B12 should not be blindly taken. Just go to the store and buy a jar and not knowing really what the dosage is as far as how much to take and how often to take it. That you really should have these blood tests done on a routine basis, even if it's every year, every 2 years, so that you know that the amount that you're supplementing is rectifying, is fixing, is bringing you into the range, the optimal range of those vitamin levels in your bloodstream. So I actually worked with someone a year or two ago, and her B12 level was it was so high that I had never seen anything like that. It was in the thousands. Um, and somewhere, yeah, between like 250 and 800 or 1,000, depending on the lab, is normal. But this one was like 4,000. So we want to avoid that because lack of B12 can lead to um, many changes in the body, many deficiencies in the body. There's neurological, there's brain, there's heart health. So we want to make sure that those things are supplemented adequately without being too heavily supplemented. Thyroid panel, this is one thing that I don't know a whole lot about. Thyroid doesn't really interest me, and supplementing for it, and so, but it really should be something that you test for. Go by your doctor's recommendations for this one. Um, and because it can indicate if your thyroid is sluggish, it can show in signs of weight gain, low energy, sleepiness, poor skin, hair loss, and having hyperthyroid is a whole nother level of conditions. But then you have a fast heart rate, and you have difficulty sleeping and things like that. So please, thyroid panel also. We are going to dig into the lipid panel and to the and to A1C. All right. I do want to mention the other tests to you because they are super important, but it's not really my scope to go further into that. Okay. Um, okay. So let's go to cholesterol first. The National Cholesterol Guidelines are concocted by the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association. And I believe 2020 was the last time they revised these, and they're probably coming due for another revision, right? These are the current guidelines. And like I said, I'm going to make the case that these are not optimal for human health. So these numbers, oh, let me jump back. So we're going to talk mostly about total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, and triglycerides. Okay, there are so many other cholesterol particles like LP little a and apolipoprotein B that require really a further dive. I've covered that in my diabetes group. So if you would like to go back maybe I did in February. It's Heart Month. That's when I did it. So you can go back and catch that episode. But these are total cholesterol guidelines. So desirable, right? When something is desirable, that's what you should want, right? It's desirable. So you should want, according to the National Cholesterol Guidelines, a total cholesterol of less than 200. That's desirable. To have borderline high cholesterol, that means between 200 and 239. These are all in milligrams per deciliter. And high cholesterol is 240. Problem with these is that they don't reflect the data, right? They just is it that the people who are sitting around the round table and they're figuring out which numbers they should use? Is it that they just um, figured, well, maybe these numbers wouldn't cause too much anguish, too much worry in Americans because they seem to be desirable. But the problem with desirable is that 35% of people who have this desirable level, so that's between 150 and 200. So that's really the desirable level is between 150 and 200. 35% of people who have heart attacks have cholesterol in the desirable level, right? To make it worse, okay, so that was one study. There was a 2009 study out of UCLA that showed that, oops, I'm sorry, that's for LDL cholesterol. I take it back. The CARE study, which was a CARE study 2022, maybe, they showed that the average person who had a heart attack had a total cholesterol level of 209. So if you're the average person and you have a heart attack and you have a 209 cholesterol, you're only borderline high. Shouldn't you be in the high category if you're having the heart attack, right? Then your cholesterol is high. So I get it. It's only an average, and there are people who have lower cholesterol and people who have higher cholesterol that have heart attacks. But we know that fact that if you have a cholesterol level of less than 150 and keep it there over time, over years and decades, that your risk for heart attack goes way down, way down. We have Framingham Heart data, Framingham Heart Study data, which is now, I think, in its um, third generation. It's been going since 1948, and the data there tell us that maintaining a cholesterol of less than 150 practically guarantees you that you are not accumulating plaque in your arteries, and therefore an ischemic heart attack. So ischemic means that lack of blood flow to the heart. There's a blockage somewhere, or there's a thrombus, there's a clot that is now getting caught up in the artery somewhere and is blocking the blood flow. I'm getting too technical, but total cholesterol level of less than 150 is what we want to shoot for. Okay, not just 1 year, not just 2 years, but the whole time, right? That is the number to shoot for, not this less than 200 nonsense. Okay. Before I cover this slide, I just want to mention that other study and talk about LDL cholesterol. So LDL cholesterol, the standard guideline numbers, the desirable LDL cholesterol is less than 100. Between 101 and 129 is 121, 129, I'm blanking on what it's called. It is slightly elevated, let's say. And then there's another category, and then another category. And so if you have a LDL of 200, that's the number that's considered high, elevated. Okay, so here's my UCLA data. 75% of people who have heart attacks have LDL levels of less than 130. So that, remember, that was just slightly elevated. But 75% of people who have heart attacks have slightly elevated or normal LDL cholesterol. Remember, LDL cholesterol is the kind of cholesterol, the lousy cholesterol, the bad cholesterol that's easily taken up by the artery wall and then created into plaque. So that is totally not, we don't want high LDL. And we know that 50% of the people in that study who had desirable LDL, 50% of the people that had heart attacks, they had desirable LDL. So it is not desirable to have less than 100. You need to have less than 80 if you don't have heart disease, or less than 70 with heart disease. They're even making that, or they're talking about setting that down to 60. So if they set the cardiac marker to below 60, or desirable below 60, that may change the general guidelines some. We'll have to see. Okay. Let's talk about HDL. So HDL is the happy cholesterol, right? HDL, it's the good cholesterol. It's the kind of cholesterol that we've always thought that if you have high HDL, you were protected. Even if your total cholesterol was awfully high and your LDL cholesterol was awfully high, that if you had high HDL cholesterol, that was a good thing and that would protect you. Well, we were wrong, and the data are very conclusive that having high HDL cholesterol, not only does it not protect you, but it actually is a risk factor for heart disease, for atherosclerosis. So we need to be very careful of that. The doctor who was my doctor until recently, he he just furthered that myth every time that I when I would hear him in the office, or if I asked him myself, or he would just further that untruth, and it's really just an injustice. But it is no HDL is no longer considered cardioprotective. So, but I want to bring up one thing is that um, you might, as you are staying with a plant-based diet and you see your total cholesterol coming down and you see your LDL cholesterol coming down, you will also see your HDL come down. And that is totally fine because the body's not stupid. I would tell people all the time because I have to make light of it in a way so that they can understand it. So here's the job of the HDL cholesterol is as it's floating through the bloodstream, it sees an LDL cholesterol, right? So and here's the HDL, here's the LDL, and its job is to grab a hold of the LDL cholesterol and carry it out of the bloodstream. That's why HDL is supposedly protective because it latches on the LDL and gets rid of it. Well, that doesn't happen in people who are overweight, who smoke, who have high blood pressure, who have kidney damage, who have diabetes. It doesn't happen. Those HDL molecules become damaged and they become a liability, right? So back to my comment about how the body's not stupid. So if you don't have a lot of these LDL molecules, you don't need a lot of happy cholesterol, right? The body's not going to waste its resources on making good cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, if there's not a lot of these bad guys floating around. So if you have lowered your LDL cholesterol, let's say from 120 down to 80, why would your body waste the time and the effort to make HDL cholesterol? It just doesn't need it. So do not freak out if your total cholesterol goes down, the LDL cholesterol goes down, and the HDL. And if your doctor comments about it, how that's not a good thing and how you need to exercise more, maybe you need to have take niacin to raise no, no, you don't. Um, okay. Let's see. Triglycerides. So here's one that I'm sort of in agreement with the guidelines. Triglycerides are sort of the circulating fats in your bloodstream, and they change quickly. The levels change quickly depending on what you ate, what you did, um, and to have triglycerides less than 150, it's fine, right? They're not gonna create an argument for that one. But in the last decade or so, we have found that there is there is a link between triglycerides, high triglycerides, and elevated risk for heart disease. So it's not something to ignore, but again, I just sort of agree with the guidelines. Okay, so A1C. Um, just because it's on the slide, I'm going to say that the optimal level is between 5.5. Right? We know that Normal A1C is less than 5.7, right? And these are all in percentages, and I'll explain further what A1C is for those who need a little refresher. But again, normal is less than 5.7. If you have prediabetes, your A1C falls between 5.7 and 6.4. And then full-blown diabetes is what we call it, is 6.5 and greater. So A1C is the measurement of how sticky your red blood cells are. If your body is not really good at getting rid of the excess glucose, excess sugar in your bloodstream, your red blood cells become sticky. And the more glucose in your bloodstream, the stickier your A1C, the stickier your red blood cells will be. But because red blood cells only live about 3 months before they just naturally die, body sort of chauffeurs that away, and then a new red blood cell that is totally not sticky will appear in the bloodstream, and all that doesn't happen at once. It sort of happens over the course of three months. So that's why we don't measure it sooner than that. It's an every 3-month measurement. Some things about A1C that you should know is that it takes about 2 cycles of A1C to really show a solid trend. So if you take your A1C, if you get your A1C measured in January and it's 7, and you get it measured in April and it's 6.8, and you get it measured then again in June or July, and it's 6.2, well, that's a great trend. But you might see that those numbers jump around a little bit more. And that is because, remember that I said those red blood cells are replaced sort of haphazardly. I'm sure that the body has a nice little schedule for that, but I don't know what that is. So when we measure A1C, it's not an exact science. So when your lab report says that your A1C is 5.5, your A1C the A1C has an error or a standard of error of 0.5. 0.5 or 0.5%. So if we measure 5.5 as written on your lab report, it could really be as low as 5.0 or 6.0. So now you're talking about great blood sugar, right? 5.0, that's terrific. Or 6.0 is prediabetes. Or you could look at it, if your blood sugar on your report says 6.5, it could either be 6.0 or as high as 7.0. So that's why we want to measure it regularly. We want to watch the trends, and we want to get a solid 6 months of numbers, a good 2 cycles before we start to see where those numbers are going. Interesting. So the guideline with these guidelines, by the way, are created by, I'm sorry, that's my next page. I'll have to wing it. These guidelines are created by the American Diabetes Association and the American Association for Clinical Chemistry. And again, not really sure how they come up with them, but I'm going to say that this less than 5.7 as a normal A1C may really not be optimal. So this is a mouthful. Let me see if I can get this across to you. So this was a study done in the UK in 2011. And what the researchers wanted to show was that as your A1C increases, your risk for all-cause mortality also increases. So Remember, the normal blood sugar, according to A1C, is 5 point lower than 5.7. So that would be sort of like this 12.1 bar on the graph, right? So, which means that if you had 1,000 person years, so we in research we count the number of people and the number of years that we follow them as person years. So this way we can standardize somewhat. So you would have, for every 1,000 person years, there would be a little more than 12 deaths if your A1C was between 5.6 and 6.0. Okay. If your A1C goes up to 6.1 to 6.5, that number goes up to 18.5. If your blood sugar is 6.5 plus, I'm not really sure exactly how they they categorize that. But here it is, almost 25%. Your 25% of those 1,000 person hours would result that's the risk for all-cause death. But look what happens on the other end. If you lower your A1C to between 4.6 and, I'm sorry, between 5.1 and 5.5, the risk for all-cause mortality goes down to 8.7, and then to 6.2. And then look, if you're below 4.5, 5.7. So I have to argue that to be able to just group everybody into this, as long as your A1C is less than 5.7, you're fine. It's not like that. So there really is maybe some more stratification that should be happening, at least with the providers. If we're not going to blast it out to the public, that's fine. But at least the providers should know, and that you have the information now, and you can be a little bit more scrutinizing with your results. Let's see. Okay, so what is the doctor going to say? So the doctor has now said, oh yeah, so your numbers are good, right? And if you didn't have any of this information, or you didn't really know what questions to ask, you would say, oh, okay, right? Now what's the doctor going to do? And not all doctors do this, but I would say that almost everyone that I've ever seen does this. So the wait and see approach, I like this, right? I like this, where they'll say, okay, well, you know what? That A1C, 6.0, it really needs to be below 5.7. Let's do more labs in 3 months, and let's see what that number is then. That's the wait and see approach. But what's the problem with that? The problem is that there's no guidance, no instruction. There's, maybe that they'll say, oh, go home, don't eat so much sugar. What does that mean? Like, how is that going to help? Well, maybe that's going to help, but that's not going to fix the problem, right? So wait and see approach. Okay, and I made myself some notes about the problems of the wait and see approach. Is that sorry, the next for the next comment, the silent treatment. So the silent treatment, right? What does that mean? That means they don't say anything. They say nothing. They just they think, oh, that's 6.0 A1C. Well, you know what? It's not diabetes yet. I wouldn't be prescribing metformin yet. They don't need the glucometer. I'm just not going to say something. We'll wait 3 months to see what it is then. That's the silent treatment, and that's really bad. Because when it comes to chronic kidney disease, I know that we're skipping into another disease category, but more than 1 in 7 U.S. adults have some form of CKD. That's 14% of people, CKD. And as many as 9 in 10 adults don't even know it. Why? Silent treatment, wait and see approach, right? Well, really, silent treatment, yeah. About 1 in 3 adults with severe chronic kidney disease don't know they have it. So the silent treatment is not good because chronic kidney disease, there are stages when you get to total kidney failure, you're on dialysis. Unless you start a plant-based diet and you can regenerate those nephrons, that has been proven to be the case, you're up the creek without a paddle. So, and the prescription pad, well, they don't really use the prescription pads anymore, right? Again, everything is electronically documented and transmitted. So, but that's it. Like, okay, I'm going to write you a prescription for metformin. Here you go. Take 1,000 milligrams every day before breakfast, and not on, so and so and so. Drink plenty of water. I'll see you in 3 months. We'll check it again. They don't even give you a chance to fix this. So, what can you do to improve your numbers? So we know lifestyle changes are huge with these numbers, with cholesterol, blood sugar, kidney indicators, liver damage, thyroid. So lifestyle is huge, and a plant-based diet is above and beyond the biggest contributor to fixing these numbers. And I'm just going to go through the next slide sort of quickly. Oh, not this one. The next one is going to be quickly. So this is one of my diabetes patients, and he was a couple years back, but I still use his example because he is fantastic. So Evan, he dropped his A1C from 12.1 to 5.3. Actually, he dropped it to 4.8 during COVID. He started at 249 pounds. Wait, no, wait. I want to get this right. 429 pounds. I got to move my box around. Yeah, he was 429 pounds before he came to see me, but he had seen me previously. He knew all about a plant-based diet. When he showed up at my door this time, he was 343 pounds. And in what, 3, 4, 5 months, he dropped to 280 pounds. His fasting blood sugar went from 271 to 90. His total cholesterol, 234 to 178. LDL almost within the national guidelines, right? The HDL went up a little bit, doesn't matter. And triglycerides enormously better. Plant-based diet. And he exercised, but his life was forever changed. He based his diet on potatoes and brown rice pasta and beans and lentils instead of soda and sausages and all that stuff and eggs. So he lost the last 20 pounds during COVID, and his final weight was 180 pounds. So he is always my oh, and here's Bill really quickly. He dropped his A1C from 9.8 to 5, up to 5.6. That's more than 4 points. And he lost 70 pounds in 3 months, and he dropped his cholesterol from 210 to 138. So again, plant-based diet wins the day. So to get to those exceptional numbers, those optimal numbers, right? You got to know what the numbers sort of mean, what we're measuring, what we want them to be. What does the data show? And then how to get there. Fiber is your best friend. It's going to fix almost everything. It's going to lower blood sugar. It's going to lower cholesterol. It's going to improve kidney function. It's going to improve liver function. Its effects on the microbiome are incredible, right? Speeds weight loss, lowers blood pressure. If any of this you're interested in more information, go back to my diabetes recordings. We've talked about all these things in depth. And that's it. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to entertain them. If anybody who's watching on replay, if you have any questions, you can go to my website, and there's a little contact me that you can use to to ask questions, get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. This is
Mm,
great. Very informative.
Thank you. A
Does anyone
mouthful.
have any questions in the chat group, or anybody that want to ask anything specific? Anybody have some numbers that they received at the doctor's office they have questions about?
Into an iPad, so that what will happen? A, their flavor will be intensified. B,
Oops. Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, Peggy, what would you say an ideal A1C would be?
The lower the better. The lowest I've seen is 4.4.
Okay.
The lower the better. What I'd like you to do is to think about A1C. Think about those glucose molecules in your bloodstream as shards of glass. And those shards of glass are traveling through the bloodstream and they're tearing up the insides of your arteries. They are destroying the arteries in your heart and in your brain and the fine capillaries in your eyes and in your kidneys. So, yeah, as low as you can get it is optimal. And like I said, 4.4 is the lowest I've seen.
Peggy, are there any specific foods, like plant-based foods, that you really focus on with people that have diabetes?
Absolutely. So my two favorites are oatmeal. Oatmeal is sort of like a sponge as it travels through the body. So certainly there's more than just soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Those are just two catch-all phrases. There's probably about 300 different fibers, but one very important fiber is beta glucan, and the beta glucan can lower the blood sugar, uh, cholesterol levels. Actually, doctors in the years before 1921, when insulin was discovered, doctors would prescribe an oatmeal diet for their diabetes patients because oatmeal 3 times a day for a few days would dramatically lower blood sugar. So not only will the oatmeal, the beta glucan, sort of like grab onto to blood sugar and cholesterol, but toxins that are in your body, extra hormones floating around. So oatmeal is one of them, and it could be either steel cut or old-fashioned oats. I've heard that even old-fashioned oats have a really good amount of beta glucan. But also the other one is beans. Beans and lentils, they have that second meal effect, which means that I'll give you a suppose that you ate beans for lunch. Not only would the beans lower your blood sugar for the time between lunch and dinner, but also through dinner and into the evening. So we call it a second meal effect. It has it lowers blood sugar for 2 meal times. So can you imagine if you ate beans for lunch and then for dinner again, you would have in those early evening hours, you would have double blood sugar lowering effect of the beans. And if you could do it, have beans for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that would be terrific. And you can disguise your beans. Like I love, I have garbanzo beans for breakfast every morning. I make a chickpea mash and I combine it with uh, arugula and sun-dried tomatoes, and I put a couple spices in there, and I toast up a piece of sprouted grain toast. Oh yeah, it's my favorite breakfast. Have it almost every day. So beans, I have beans for lunch. I did. I had edamame and lentils, and dinner. No, I didn't have beans for dinner. So, but yes, beans and oatmeals.
So there was a question in the chat. It says, is the diabetes talk you suggested watching, is it on replay in the free section?
It is. It is. I don't know how the replays are listed, Nicole. I
I'm
don't.
pretty sure since we changed formats, which that would just be since January. I think all the talks since January are under, if you go on the website, they're categorized. So like Peggy's, her diabetes one, it should be there. But if it's before January, I'm not sure the old ones are there. But you said it was in February?
The heart one where I talked about LP little a and ejection fraction, those, which is not a lab test, but it's an an outcome of an echocardiogram. But I think that the way they're listed, Nicole, they're not listed by topic, they're listed by month. So if there's something particular that you're looking for, please go to my website and drop me a message, and I can tell you, I keep a list of what topics I did what months, and I could tell you which if you're looking for more A1C, or you're looking for information on the microbiome or whatever it might be, I could probably direct you to which recording it is.
And I have one more question.
Yeah.
So I was at work the other day and a friend of mine, she has diabetes and she's not on a whole food plant-based, but she's definitely more. And she has one of the monitors. And we were talking about potatoes because I was talking about how good potatoes are. And so many people think that if you eat potatoes, they're high in carbs and which is bad for your blood sugar. But she was talking about that she watches her blood sugar like after she eats a potato and it's okay. But if she eats white rice, she sees a really high spike with white rice.
Yeah, so what white rice, a lot of the fiber has been removed. So in a kernel, general kernel, whether it's a wheat kernel or a rice kernel or whatever it might be, barley, there are three parts. There's the endosperm, which is like the starchy. Then there's the bran, that's the fiber. Why can't I think of the other third? And there's a third level, which is the nutrients. And it'll come back to me. But with white rice, what you're doing, you're removing a lot of the fiber. So you have that starchy endosperm that's going to raise the blood sugar. But here's a trick, and you can do this with rice, potatoes, pasta, toast, in order to keep blood sugar levels more moderate, because depending on how the blood sugar will spike. Won't spike the same for everybody. It depends on how insulin resistant they are, and some other factors. But to keep that spike more, or to keep the levels more regular, cook your potatoes first, chill them, put them in the refrigerator, and then reheat them. What that does, it takes some of the other fibers and it takes some of the carbohydrates, turns them into resistant starch. And resistant starch is protective of volatile blood sugar numbers. So it keeps them and you can do that with toast too. I mean, it's not ideal, right? We put a toast in the toaster and it heats it up, let it cool. You don't necessarily have to put and then just toast it again to heat it up real quick. And that'll do the same thing. And to do that with pasta, to do with rice, ask her to do that, even with white rice, and see if there's a difference in her blood sugar.
That's interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. If there are not any more questions, I guess we will finish up. Peggy, do you have anything you want to close with?
I think that it does make me angry a little bit about the standard guidelines that we are sort of measured up to, and we're not told the truth. Like, I don't understand. Like, do they think that we're not big boys and girls, that we can't handle the truth? I mean, if I go to the doctor and my cholesterol is 199 and the doctor says, oh, it's good. Like, but I want to know the truth. I want to know that if I get it down to 149 and keep it there, that I don't have to have a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
Like that, and yeah. So why not give me the information? Let me deal with it. So that's all. But I hope that this has been helpful, and this at least strikes a conversation with you and your doctor next time you go visit. And good luck.
And so Peggy, tell us real quick where we can find you? Can tell us like which night your diabetes program is and where we can find you and social media things.
So the diabetes support group meets the second Tuesday of the month at 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. And we don't only talk about diabetes, we talk about things and how it affects diabetes mostly. And I would love to, and I have people that don't have diabetes all the time, so you're all welcome. And on social media, let's see. Instagram, I am Peggy_Kraus with 3 S's. So it's PEGGY_KRAUSSS. And then on Facebook, I'm Peggy Kraus Coaching. So and most of the time, if you just Google Peggy Kraus, I think a lot of that information will come up. But go
And
into
you
my
have a
website.
Facebook group, is that right, that people can join or?
Yeah, it's actually not a Facebook group, it's just a Facebook page, but
Okay.
I post twice a week, lots of good little tips and information. Peggy Kraus Coaching on Facebook.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Nicole.
everyone that attended tonight. We had a pretty good attendance. It's fairly nice. And
Terrific.
thank you, Chef Yen, all the way in Malaysia for being here with us. So
Yes.
it's always good to see that, know that you're here. I know you just got out of bed and you're still in pajamas. But and
Terrific.
everyone have a wonderful night, and we will all see you on PBNSG at another session soon.
Thank you, Nicole, for
All right.
hosting.
Oh, you're
Okay,
welcome.
bye. Bye, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching and for being a part of the PBNSG community. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for even more plant-based insights, expert interviews, and delicious recipes.